In 2014, Facebook quietly published a study in a peer-reviewed academic journal admitting that it had secretly manipulated the emotions of 689,003 users without their knowledge or consent. The experiment ran for 1 week in January 2012. During that time, Facebook's engineers altered what those users saw in their news feeds, suppressing either positive or negative content, to see if it would change how they felt. It worked, and Facebook never told a single one of those people it was happening. That should stop you. Because this wasn't a rogue employee. It wasn't a data breach. It was a deliberate, internally approved psychological experiment run on nearly 700,000 people by the largest social network on Earth, and the people running it considered it entirely routine. The implications of that word, routine, are what this story is really about. When the study became public in June 2014, the backlash was immediate. Journalists, ethicists, and lawmakers called it a profound violation of human trust. But Facebook's response was measured, almost bored. The company issued a brief statement saying the research was conducted to improve its service. No apology, no acknowledgement that anything had gone wrong. Just a gentle reminder that users had agreed to the terms of service. That response tells you more about the state of your digital privacy than the experiment itself. Because if a company can manipulate your emotional state, document the results, publish them in an academic journal, and face no legal consequences whatsoever, what exactly are the limits? Right now, in 2026, with Meta stock climbing and artificial intelligence being embedded deeper into every platform you use, that question has never been more urgent. Here is why this matters beyond the outrage cycle. The experiment demonstrated, with scientific precision, that a social media platform can measurably alter a person's psychological state through algorithmic curation alone. No drugs, no direct contact, just controlling which words appear on a screen. The researchers found that users shown fewer positive posts wrote more negative posts themselves, and vice versa. Emotional states transferred through text, invisibly, at scale. That's not a theory. That's a published finding in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. The second implication is structural. If Facebook ran this experiment in 2012, treated it as normal internal research, and only disclosed it because an academic publication required transparency, then the question isn't whether platforms have done this again. The question is how many times, on what scale, and toward what ends. The tools available to platforms in 2026 are incomparably more powerful than anything that existed in 2012. The experiment that shocked the world 14 years ago would be considered primitive by today's standards. To understand how Facebook arrived at this moment, you need to understand what the news feed actually is. When Facebook launched in 2004, it was a simple profile page. You visited someone's page to see what they were up to. The news feed, introduced in 2006, changed everything. Instead of you going to information, the information came to you, curated, ranked, and filtered by an algorithm. Think of it like the difference between walking to a newsstand and choosing your own papers versus having someone else select every article you read, every morning, based on a detailed psychological profile of your preferences and vulnerabilities. By 2012, Facebook had over 1 billion users. The news feed had become the primary lens through which hundreds of millions of people experienced their social world. The algorithm was making roughly 1,500 decisions per user per day about what to show and what to hide. That is an extraordinary amount of invisible influence, accumulating quietly every single day. The study itself was led by Facebook data scientist Adam Kramer, along with Cornell University researchers Jamie Guillory and Jeffrey Hancock. What they did was divide users into 4 groups. One group saw fewer positive posts. One saw fewer negative posts. 2 groups served as controls. The manipulation lasted 7 days. At the end, the researchers analyzed the emotional valence of the posts those users wrote. The results were statistically significant. People who saw less positive content produced less positive content themselves. The emotion had transferred, not through conversation, not through direct interaction, but purely through algorithmic filtering. Kramer later posted a public apology on Facebook, writing that he was sorry for the distress the publication had caused. He said the goal had been to make Facebook a better, less sad place. But that framing revealed something important. The assumption embedded in the experiment was that Facebook had both the right and the responsibility to manage your emotional experience without telling you. The platform didn't see itself as a neutral infrastructure. It saw itself as a curator of human feeling. What most people don't fully grasp is the consent problem here, and it is a serious one. Facebook argued that users had consented to the experiment by agreeing to the platform's data use policy. That policy, at the time, included language about using data for research purposes. The problem is that no reasonable person reading a standard terms of service agreement would understand that to mean a company could run a psychological experiment on them. The consent was, at best, buried. At worst, it was fictional. Cornell University's Institutional Review Board, which normally must approve research involving human subjects, later confirmed it had not reviewed the study before it launched. That's not a technicality. Institutional review processes exist because of historical abuses, Tuskegee, Milgram, the CIA's MKUltra program. They exist specifically to prevent researchers from deciding on their own that the ends justify the means. Facebook bypassed all of that, not through malice, but through a genuine belief that its own internal processes were sufficient. That institutional arrogance is the real danger. There's a deeper complication still. The study's emotional effects, while statistically significant, were actually quite small in absolute terms. The researchers themselves acknowledged this. Critics argued the measured effect sizes were so modest that the experiment caused minimal real harm. But that argument misses the point entirely. The concern isn't whether this particular experiment caused measurable suffering. The concern is what the methodology enables at greater scale, with more sophisticated tools, over longer periods, for purposes that may not be academic at all. Targeted political manipulation, advertising campaigns timed to periods of induced anxiety, content strategies designed to maximize engagement through the deliberate amplification of negative emotion. All of it is technically feasible, and all of it flows from the same logical foundation the 2012 experiment established. This affects you directly and concretely. Every major platform you use today, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, X, operates on the same foundational logic Facebook demonstrated in 2012. The algorithm doesn't show you a neutral slice of the world. It shows you a version engineered to produce a specific behavioral response, primarily continued engagement. Research published in 2021 by MIT found that false information spreads roughly 6 times faster on Twitter than true information, largely because content triggering outrage, fear, and anxiety drives more clicks. The platform's incentives and your emotional volatility are deeply intertwined and not in your favor. If you are a professional in marketing, media, public health, education,